Shanleigh Rose is a singer-songwriter from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland who graduated from the Junior Academy of Country Music in 2023. She has released several enchanting country pop singles over the past few years. The most recent is Ricochet, and we're going to talk about it. I might ask her about other things as well. Hello, Shanleigh Rose.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for asking. And when I said the singles are enchanting, you really do have a knack for a lovely melody. So I'm curious as to when you started writing songs.
Oh, well, thank you so much for saying that. I started writing songs probably when I was 11, but even before then, I think my first memory of a melody that I came up with, I was probably 6, 7, or 8. And I've always just been humming melodies and making stuff up, but I wrote my first full song when I was 11. It wasn't very good, but yeah, that's when I started writing, I'd say.
So were you surrounded by music as a little kid? So that's why you might have started humming melodies at such a young age?
Absolutely, yeah, I was. I've always been surrounded by music. My parents listened to country music in the car all the time, and I was also always surrounded by creativity and live music. I'd always come into the lounge room, and mom and dad would just be singing like the Chick song or Garth Brooks, and yeah. So I've always had music in my life, and I started. My dad taught me how to play guitar at 8. So yeah, music's just been such a huge part of my childhood and now my life. So. Yeah.
I hope he taught you to play on a guitar with nylon strings at that age, not steel strings.
Yes, definitely nylon strings.
So it wasn't like he said, here's my guitar and have a go. You actually got an appropriate guitar.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think I might have dabbled a bit with the steel strings, but he did buy me my own nylon string guitar.
And when you first started playing guitar, did it just feel like, yes, this is what I want to do? Or, it can be quite a complicated instrument to learn. So did it take a bit of getting used to?
Um, I, I think it took a bit of getting used to. I was definitely very frustrated to start with because I mean, my tiny little 8-year-old fingers on a guitar neck, and it didn't make much sense. But I had my dad, and my primary school as well had a guitar teacher. So, and I always wanted to play guitar like my dad. So I stuck with it, even though it was frustrating. And then, yeah, and then it just came easily, I think, after a few years.
Has he been in a band when he was younger?
Yeah, he was in a high school band. I think he played bass and saxophone. So,
Okay. And have either of those instruments been in your past?
um, no, my sister plays saxophone, but I played the flute in a school band. So that was my quirky instrument, was the flute.
And you mentioned that you'd walk in and your mum would be singing as well. So does she have a musical background or is she a passionate amateur?
A passionate amateur. My mum actually found when we went through our old shipping container, and she had like cassettes that she'd recorded of songs she wrote, and my dad has books of songs he wrote. So they've never wanted to do it professionally, but they've always loved music as well.
Yeah. And obviously now they've passed it on to you and you're making your own music. So one thing I noticed listening to your songs is that you write in a way that really suits your voice. And so I'm wondering so you talked about humming melodies when you were younger and starting to write songs when you were 11 properly, but when did you develop an awareness of yourself as a singer?
Um, I'm not sure. I know I always loved to sing as well. I was also very bad at that because I had my tonsils out and I had tonsillitis and issues. And I remember as a kid, I'd just walk around the house singing, and mum would be like, "Stop singing, you sound terrible." um, but I think 11 and 12 is when I started realizing I wanted to be good at singing. But when I wrote songs, I didn't necessarily think of have my voice in mind when I wrote them. So it was very difficult trying to sing these songs that were not in my key. um, yeah, so I think I'd say 14, 15 is when I started being like, okay, I need to write songs that work with me and for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which is not always the easiest thing to do because at that age, or let's just say at that stage of being an artist, you're still figuring out what you like and what you don't like and how you're going to do things. So it suggests to me that you actually do have a great ear to be able to match how you know your voice sounds with what you want to write. So I'm interested in who's influenced you most as a singer and also as a songwriter, and they may not be the same people, of course.
Um, I think Taylor Swift is probably my biggest influence. She was the first artist that I was like, wow, I really like this person's music and all of their music. Because Dad would, and Mum would just play all of these different songs in the car on a playlist. And there were always certain songs that were standouts to me. And when I found out they were all Taylor Swift songs, I was like, wow, she's really interesting. Yeah, so I've listened to all her albums as they came out. And I think she released her first album when I was born. So yeah, I've grown up with her music and it definitely influenced me the most. But I'd also say my parents and whatever they played, like the Dixie Chicks, Garth Brooks, Kasey Chambers, Troy Cassar-Daley, those all influenced me. Probably not in such a substantial way, but definitely will influence me.
And I do think Taylor is great at writing for her voice too. Like she doesn't try to be like this massive, she does have a big range, but she doesn't have to show off within that range. And so I think part of what I heard in your songs was that even though you clearly have a great range, you are quite restrained in terms of how you're going to deliver it in the song. And that can take a bit of, practice and maturity, essentially.
Thank you
So you attended the Junior Academy last year, and I'm wondering if there was one part of it you liked more than others, because you do get to do quite a lot of different stuff at the Academy.
Yeah, I'd say all of the all of the classes, songwriting with Roger Corbett, and also this one-on-one songwriting was probably my favorite. I love the performing parts. It's a little bit more nerve-wracking, I would say, to get up and perform in front of strangers, but they became not strangers very quickly, so I love that too. I don't think there's anything that I particularly disliked about the academy. Every day it was something new and something. I think maybe music business might have been the one thing that stressed me out a little bit, but only because I'm not very good at it.
Well, and I think that's reasonable. Part of the difficulty with being an artist these days is how much of the business you have to take on, when, of course, it's not your core capability. You're great at being an artist. And
Yes.
ideally, someone else could take care of the business, but so many artists are independent that it's necessary. Um, so I also know from talking to people who have been to the academy that a lot of academy graduates, whether they're senior or junior, come out of academy with co-writing partners. I'm wondering if you form some connections there that maybe have led to songs or you think might lead to songs.
Yeah, well, I wrote a song with David Carter at the Academy, and I was at a songwriters retreat later with Ashley Dallas, who I wrote a song with. Um, and I've definitely tried to sit down and write songs with a lot of the other students from the Academy. So yeah, it's just amazing to have that connection with these people and to get to write and to share your craft with them. So yeah, I'd say yeah, definitely.
And that songwriting retreat, I'm guessing, was the DAG, Sheep
Yep.
Station in Nundle. Was that the time when I remember I interviewed Ashley? I think it was that one when you all got reined in or something like that. It was.
I think that was the year before.
Oh, okay. So that's quite an intensive environment as well, by the sound of it. Did you write quite a few different songs while you were there?
Yeah, I wrote nine, I think, songs with different people, which is a lot in the span of 4 days. And it was a very vulnerable space, I think, because I kind of see my creative side as two different people. I have my vulnerable writer's side, and then I have my performer's side. So going into an environment where you're songwriting for 4 days straight, I had to be like my vulnerable self, which is very shy, and to be surrounded by like 30 other people was a very intense environment, but it was so amazing and everybody was so lovely and you learn so much from even just talking to people about the songs that they write. So I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity.
Did you feel after that there was more safety in being vulnerable than you thought there might have been before?
Oh, absolutely, definitely. The first co-write I did was with Ashley, which is quite funny because I think it was probably 2 months after the academy and she was my mentor. And so all of the songwriting mentors had to pull a name out of the hat, and the first name she pulled was mine. And she's like, "Of course this happened," but she's such a beautiful person, and writing with her and getting to be vulnerable and emotionally connected with someone like her definitely made me feel so safe. And yeah, it was beautiful.
And you've also received some attention and accolades for those two parts of yourself, the performance side and the songwriting side. So last year you won the 2023 Gympie Muster Junior Talent Search, and you were a top 10 finalist in the Groundwater Country Music Festival Kickstart competition. So they are, I know that you would have performed your own songs, but they're also performance awards. So that made it a pretty big year, obviously.
Yes, it was a huge year. I honestly, like from the Tamworth through to December, it was so much was happening, and it definitely felt like such a big moment. That was when I realized I was like, I could really be a musician. I could be an artist.
Well, because they are very competitive, because there are a lot of great artists and great young artists. I'm wondering, when you get that kind of accolade, whether you feel like it puts more pressure on you, like, oh, okay, now I've won these things and I need to really do something with them, or is it actually quite freeing because you think, all right, I've reached a certain level here, now I can take off and do other things?
I think it's a bit of both, because on one hand, it's like, wow, you're very grateful and you feel like you've been um, awarded something, I guess. But then it's also like, well, now I have to do something bigger and better. Yeah. But when I go into things like the Gympie Master, for example, I don't go in with the mindset of I have to win this. You go in for the connections and for the people that you meet and the experience. And I think even if you win it, you still have that same mindset, that it becomes a little bit less stressful and you can appreciate it for the experience.
Mm-hmm. Had you entered any competitions before last year?
The I think the Tamworth Golden Gig was the only like real competition that I'd entered before that one. So yeah, not many.
It's golden gigs for younger artists or emerging artists, you'd
Under
say, yeah,
18s.
under 18. Because it's a particular thing to enter competitions. Not everyone would enjoy it. I don't know that I would do it, but as you said, you've got a great interpretation on it, which is that you can make some connections. But is it still highly nerve-wracking to get up there and perform at a competition?
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you can see the judges there and you know that they're judging you and critiquing everything that you do. Very nerve-wracking. But yeah, I like to, when I get nervous, I sort of trick myself into thinking that it's excitement. And it works 99% of the time, but competitions is the 1% that it doesn't work.
All right. I'm sure the more you enter, the better it will get. And in fact, you have won some other awards for your songwriting. You won the Tamworth Songwriters Association John P. Toomey Commemorative Award for Youth Songwriting for Good Luck With Your Love, which you released as a single in 2022. You also won a Capital Country Music Association Award for Junior Songwriter of the Year for Boy Next Door, which is a really lovely song, very catchy, and a bit of an earworm. And that was a single last year. So given that you have won awards for performance and awards as a songwriter, do you think of yourself as primarily one or the other, songwriter or performer, or is it really that both are important to you?
I'd say both are important to me for completely different reasons. I write songs as a way to like get my emotions out and to, you know, I see my songs as kind of diary entries, but when I get up and perform, I'm performing for other people. So they're both extremely important to me, but I don't think I'll ever, I don't know, they're kind of together, but I don't think they're together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I should also ask, at what age did you start performing? Because it's one thing to start writing songs at 11, another to sing and play guitar, but then it's a different stage to perform.
Yeah, I'd say my first performance was I'm a dancer too, so for a dance competition when I was 11 or 12, and that was very nerve-wracking, getting up and singing in front of people for the first time. But I didn't really gig and do festivals and stuff until I was probably 14. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely had more experience in songwriting before I started performing regularly.
And do you think that your dance training helps you with stagecraft, like how to hold yourself on stage and move?
It definitely helped, yeah, like learning how to move comfortably and the expressions you put on your face and how much you need to move for the song. It definitely helped with that.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to bring us to your latest single, which is Ricochet. What inspired this song?
This song was inspired by a math class. Well, it wasn't inspired by a math class. I got the inspiration in a math class. Um, there was a certain boy in this math class who I was kind of looking at And he'd hurt my feelings. He'd done the boy thing that they do. And I'd spent so much time, I think, just trying to get revenge or get back on him, and it wasn't working. And so it got so frustrating, and I just was like, well, I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my energy. It's completely useless. And I think it's time for me to move on. And so I wrote the song with my brother. And I wrote like the chorus during the class. I went home and finished it with my brother. And it's funny because it's such an emotional and incredibly like angry song. But when I think about it, like what inspired it, I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, it's interesting because my songs are kind of, like I said, diary entries. So even if I don't remember what happened, I always remember the emotion that I felt at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually sound angry to me. It sounds more like you've resolved to move on, and actually the song is the documenting of that resolve, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
But yeah, I'd say that too. Probably the anger is like a before thing.
That gave you the impetus to write the song. So had you written with your brother before that?
Um, no, I think that was the first time. We've done, oh, there was one more before we wrote a song about mushrooms, which we've done a lot of joking things together and comedic songwriting. And this was sort of the first time where I gave him like a serious thing and he helped write it with me. Yeah.
Was it about picking mushrooms, cooking mushrooms, mushrooms you shouldn't
It
eat?
was no, it was mushrooms was a metaphor for a toxic relationship. And
Okay.
yeah, it was very interesting, right? People were probably 14 and 17 at the time or something. Yeah.
Oh, I get it, because mushrooms grow in the dark and the damp, like a toxic relationship. Really. Now, this song has a different feel to your earlier singles in terms of how it's been made. It's quite anthemic and there's big production, and that suggests to me that you felt like you wanted it to be a statement piece almost.
Yes, I definitely did with this song. It was, well, like I said, I just remember feeling so many emotions and so strongly, and I wanted to reflect that in the songwriting, and in the production. And also, my brother, there's a lot of Greek mythology references throughout the track, which was my brother's, that was his input. And I thought something about it just felt so cinematic, the song, and I really wanted the production to reflect that. So I told Nick, who is my producer, and he's like, I got you, I know what I'm doing. And yeah, I'm very grateful for how it came out. It was exactly how I pictured it in my head.
Yes, you mentioned Sisyphus and Narcissus, and we do not often get Greek mythology references in country music songs. But I think Sisyphus is underrated in terms of those who don't know the myth. It's about
Yeah.
Sisyphus pushing the boulder uphill, and you do use it really well in the song. So, did your brother just pluck that out of his head, or is he a big Greek mythology fan?
He's a huge Greek mythology fan. He's a bit of a nerd in all the like history and mythology and stuff. And he's a creative writer himself, so he does novel writing and stuff like that. Um, and when I first played him the chorus, he thought I said I could break. The original line was I could break my back throwing stones,
Mm-hmm.
but he thought I said rolling stones, which reminded him of Sisyphus. So that kind of him mishearing me is what led to the rest of the song. And so now that's the line, is Rolling Stones. But yeah, he was like, oh, Sisyphus, that's perfect. And then we wrote the verse together. And yeah, I'm just so grateful to get to write with someone so, like, literally, is that a word? He's so intelligent about literature.
I understand exactly what you. Well, it sounds like it worked well as a process too. So maybe you'll do it again.
Absolutely. We will definitely have to do it again.
And you mentioned your producer, Nick. Has he produced all of your singles?
No, I've had a few producers that, because Mulaney, where I live, is there's so many musicians and creative people, and I just feel so lucky to get to work with them and share. So I've had Nissa Ray, Graham Staines, Kester Chalkley, who did my first single, Find Myself, who was my dance teacher. And he's like, well, I want to learn how to produce, you want to learn how to record. So yeah, we did it. And that was with him was when I realized I really want to be a musician.
Right.
So yeah, but Nick did this one.
Okay.
this is the only one he's done. But yeah, he's been amazing. So lucky to work with him.
Yeah, as I said, it is a great anthemic sound, and you have really interesting cover art to go with it. So, what is the story behind that?
My brother did the cover art as well because he's an artist. Um, yeah, he's been such a huge part of this, and we did a music video as well. Him and I went to Fortitude Valley, and he did all the filming. So yeah, but I kind of gave him a reference picture of online. I found Sisyphus like pushing a rock up a hill,
Hmm.
and I was like, if you could just kind of make this, but me,
Right.
and he like disappeared into his room for hours and came back with this incredible image, and I was like, you're so talented.
And when I first saw it, I thought it was great because you don't see a lot of cover art like that in country music. But I also thought for you, your age, your generation worked perfectly. So have other people made any remarks on it?
Yeah, everyone always compliments the cover art, like in interviews and all my friends and family, they love it. I'm so grateful to work with Riordan because he's not a country musician at all. He has his own like he's creative in completely different areas, and so getting to work with him is like bringing literature and bringing art and stuff into country music. So
Mhm.
it's been a really cool fusion, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your parents must love it, apart from anything else.
They do. They love it so much.
And they must be very proud of you. And I often think it can sound a bit trite to say that, but given how you were brought up surrounded by music, they must look at you and your brother working together and think, well, yeah, this is the best way it could have gone from how we brought them up around music.
Absolutely. And I've done my first song I wrote with my youngest sister as well, actually. But every time we do something collaborative, my parents get so excited. Yeah, they're very, I'd say they're proud of us.
So you're not tempted to start a family band?
I honestly a little bit. My sister's just started learning how to play the bass guitar. I'm learning banjo. Riordan knows a bit of guitar. Like I think we could do it. But if we did a family band, I feel like it would have to be comedic because we can't be in a room together without laughing.
Well, there's room for that, of course. So given that the family band is not the immediate future, what is coming up for you?
For me is releasing more music. I'm always writing, and yeah, I'm planning on releasing some more songs this year and next year. I'm at university at the moment for music, so I guess I'll do a lot of things through uni that I'll get to share with the world and with my career. And yeah, just performing locally and doing festivals and doing everything I can to get my music out there.
So with a degree in music, I imagine you have to specialize in something. So have you picked songwriting or performance? What's your focus?
My major is songwriting.
Okay, interesting. Does that mean you have to produce a certain number of songs over the course of a year?
Yeah, well, I just finished my first try. I think I start uni again tomorrow for the second try. But we have to do, I think, 10 minutes worth of songwriting, and that number will increase every try. So I had to write 4 or 5 songs last try. Next try, it might be like 6 or 7. And pro, our final project is an album worth of songs.
Right.
So I'm very excited for that one.
And that's quite handy for you as an artist who has already
Yes.
released music.
Well, I'm like I'll graduate with a bachelor's degree and an album that I can just put into the world.
That's true. And so, in terms of live performance, because you're in the Sunshine Coast hinterland, are there quite a few venues around there for you to play? Do you have to go to Brisbane to get gigs?
No, there's a lot of venues around here. There's a lot of weddings because it's such a beautiful land up here. So there are lots of weddings that I get to play at, and Mulaney's such a vibrant and like artistic place. So there's always open open mics and stuff like that to do. Um, June 29th, I have a gig with Kelly Cook, Jacob Vincent, and Haley Calvert at the RSL. So we're doing a songwriters in the round. But yeah, there's lots of gigs here, but I also like to go to Brisbane for gigs, and yeah.
And do you have some festivals coming up?
I my next big one is Gympie in August. And then the Millennium Music Festival and lots of things. So yeah.
So people can keep an eye on your socials, no doubt, to find out the details for all of that. And they can also stream your songs. And sounds like there is more to come.
Yes.
Shanleigh Rose, it's been lovely to talk to you about your music. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved talking to you.